Tom Green had one Disney Channel movie about being a butler.
You did? I know he had Freddy Got Fingered.
I think that's Tom Green. Yeah.
Freddy Got Fingered was a classic.
This guy looks like what's that?
Carrot Top, chairman of the board. Chairman of the board.
No, Bob the Butler.
Carrot Top. Wow.
Welcome to the Greatest Movies of All Time podcast. We are, part discussion show, part debate show, part game show. And that's what we do. We talk movies, and our goal is to find the greatest movies of all time. We're also looking for the script that opens up the show, but we'll get that. Our goal is we talk movies. We pick one or two a week, and we debate it. We see if it's one of the greats, and if it is, it'll be forever called that. If it's not, it's just a movie that we may or may not have liked. I'm one of your show debaters, Jesse. Today I'm with Gabriel.
Hello.
And JB.
Greetings. What's up?
Greetings. JB, did you just speak into your phone?
I did speak into my phone.
All right. Are you on phone audio?
No, I just thought I'd hold a microphone.
All right. I love it. All right. So today's episode, usually we have a fun title where we combine things, but today we're going to be talking about The Lighthouse.
That's right.
And that's all I got.
What two movies is that, Jesse?
It's The Lighthouse. That's all we got.
It's The Light and the House.
Yeah. But before we jump into The Lighthouse, has anybody seen anything that's anything recently just to kind of talk about? Good or bad? Possible greats?
Not one of the greats.
Not one of the greats. Typically for the people listening, it's just kind of what we're watching independently. If something happens to be a great, we'll say, hey, let's debate it later. But usually it's just kind of sharing what we've seen lately.
What do you
want to jump in?
Yeah, JB, what have you been watching this week?
Great question, Gabriel. I felt
it's the same question every week. Yeah.
It's such a great though. It's one of the greats. So Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae had released a movie to put the podcast on the timeline. They released their recent movie Lovebirds on Netflix, and I watched that.
That's right.
Great rom-com caper.
Yeah.
Full of whimsy and rising, I think, New York comedians. I think we're going to be seeing their faces a lot more in the coming years, and this will be one of the movies where you look back and you're like, oh yeah, that person was in Lovebirds before they were ridiculously famous. So I think it's one of those movies, just a little fun comedy. Not one of the greats, but again, a fun watch.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, inside baseball, behind the scenes, for our Patreon subscribers who get the pre-show feed.
Patreon.
That's right. Find us on Patreon. Who get the pre-show talk, right? I think that's the $60 tier. We were talking Lovebirds
weekly
pre-show. JB and I, the weekly Lovebirds pre-show. No, we were only talking about it a little bit. I've started watching it. I told JB, Gabriel wasn't with us yet. He's logging on. I started watching Lovebirds this week. It's on Netflix. And it's one of those I put on just to kind of watch. And then I said, oh no, I might like this. So I stopped watching it and backed out of it.
Yeah, I was really hesitant to watch it, but it being one of the newest releases, freely available on Netflix, I did partake and found it to be much more enjoyable than I anticipated it to be. I thought that Issa Rae and Kumail were terrific and played terrifically off one another. Michael Showalter not doing anything.
Wait, Showalter's in this?
No, he directed it.
He directed? I missed that part of JB. Wow. Okay.
That's right. So,
whoops.
So yeah, that was what got me to bite.
Because we celebrate the Baxter on this show.
we celebrate all things State and Stella Tangential.
Showalter. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I saw that one too. I would agree with you. I think it's a fun movie. But yeah, it's not one of the greats, but definitely worth a watch.
No, I'll go back to it. Like that's what I was kind of talking pre-show about it. I initially put it on as just a background film, like, oh, it's the thing that pops up almost like instantly when you're on Netflix, at least for me. So I was like, oh, I'll put this on. I'll do something. I'll do the dishes. I'll do whatever in the house, and I'll just leave this on. And then 5 minutes in, not really liking it, that's when I said, oh, I got to stop, and I'll watch this when I get a chance. And now that you two gentlemen watched it and enjoyed it, I anticipate seeing it. A lot of times I say on here, oh yeah, I'll watch that soon. And
it clocks in, I think, it's just under an hour and a half. So won't take too much of your time to watch that and get through it.
It doesn't feel like a drag either. It's pretty well paced. Keeps moving.
It definitely does. But moving along, because of our current, COVID-19 quarantine, and are dedicating this episode to breaking down The Lighthouse, I decided to go back and watch a film that I ignored 20 years ago, called Castaway. Starring America's favorite uncle, Tom Hanks.
Nice.
I will say that I think it's a solid performance from T. Hanks. In 2000, this was some transcendent performance and insanely good film, but watching it in 2020, I found the pacing to be really difficult to stick with. I think this film is a product of one of the things that Hollywood seems to reward quite often, and that's these like physical transformations of people. Similar to McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club, Christian Bale with
any Christian Bale role.
Basically, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I found the stuff on the island to be interesting, but then they skip forward like an entire 4 years later, and I'm like, what the hell did he do for 4 years? That's what I thought the movie would be. I did not realize it would be like, oh no, it's just like the middle 35-40 minutes is him on the island, and then he comes back, and there's this whole romance angle. And I thought Wilson, the volleyball, gave a tremendous performance.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, not one of the greats, and maybe not as good as it was previously billed as being.
No, I think you're right. Like I said, I haven't seen this film since. I think I saw it in the theater. I mean, I know I saw it in the theater. I haven't seen it since then. But no, you're right. Even back then, I remember. Kind of once he gets back, it's sort of maybe apart from the fact that he's uncomfortable. Like what does he like? Sleep on the floor, sleep on the closet, something where he's like uncomfortable sleeping back in a bed. Yeah. That was the most interesting part. My takeaway from all those years. But you're right. And now I can almost imagine it being a little tough to watch since Wilson and the volleyball have become such a joke about everything. From Family Guy to everything in between.
I watched it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's an OTW. You just watch it once. You want to see what it's about. It's a pretty novel idea. I mean, what happens when a shipping container that flies across the world gets stranded? Pretty sweet, pretty unique. But yeah, it's not like a story to share across generations. It's not timeless. It's pretty temporal, I would say.
Yeah. No, Tom Hanks, it's curious in general with Tom Hanks. Like I said, he is sort of America's sweetheart, but so many of his movies are just it's Tom Hanks movie. It's tough. Like I really like I like Tom Hanks. Of course I do.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you like Tom Hanks. You'll like this movie.
I'm not a terrible person. But so many of his films, it's tough to just let him be, to let the film be a film and be a thing and not be a Tom Hanks vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like post Forrest Gump. I don't know. It's been it's the Tom Hanks, right? And that's, I mean, like the Mr. Rogers movie. I want to see it, but I don't at the same time. It's sad to say it's kind of because of Tom Hanks. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I can see where you're coming from for Castaway.
Yeah, I think I like it when he's paired with another actor who can hold their own and are allowed to have the same amount of space and time in a picture. I think he really shines in those types of roles. I think when they tailor the vehicle to kind of fit his personality, it just becomes a little. It's never bad because he's a very likable guy, but it's just a little.
No, he's good, and he's a good actor, and it's great. All that, but I think like things like Catch Me If You Can's fun with DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. That's a fun movie. So there's plenty of good stuff out there.
Yeah, not a fun movie, but a really, really terrific movie. It's Saving Private Ryan. I mean,
no, of course,
the ensemble there is insanely good. But yeah, Castaway.
That's interesting. That's fun. I went back in the Wayback Machine a bit too this week and watched an older film I had never seen before either. I think it came out. Let's see. I'll pull it. 85. The Joel Schumacher directed St. Elmo's Fire, which I had never seen before. And this has this has all of the names of today or at one point. But Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Andy McDowell, right? So many folks. Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah.
It's a great soundtrack, obviously. And it's a pretty good movie. It's not great at all. And in some ways, for me watching it, I was a little confused watching this film. JB, I don't know if you've seen St. Elmo's Fire.
No, I've heard of it. I mean, it's a very popular term, and I knew it was a movie in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, there's a bar called St. Elmo's Bar. I was waiting for a fire at some point at said bar. Spoiler, that doesn't happen. But it's sort of about these friends from college kind of going into adulthood and transitioning into adulthood and the struggles they have with relationships and just
being adults.
It's just watching it and sort of and for all the people in it, they're just so Demi Moore, it's these are people that went on to have great careers, or at least very lucrative careers. It's just it's a troubling movie to watch today. It's just weird. It's you have to kind of put yourself in the mid 80s, because all three of the male characters are very controlling, abusive, womanizing to these female characters who are just sort of trapped amongst their ridicule and their treatment of them. Demi Moore is this sort of coke addict, maybe prostitute, to kind of pay her bills. But the other part that's really weird is there's the character by Andrew McCarthy, who is he's not like the one like trying to pick up women constantly, or cheat on their girlfriends like the other guys, or Rob Lowe's character continually cheats on his wife and baby. So his character, because he doesn't have any of these male tendencies, he's constantly made fun of as possibly being gay, which is just like it's a strange thing given Joel Schumacher being an open homosexual, movie director. but there's never that piece in, I don't know, there's just like a lot of like weird sort of gay bashing throughout the movie. But there's never that piece of Joel Schumacher kind of holding up the mirror to, society saying, our treatment of these people, or if you lack these sort of stereotypical male emotions. It's just weird. And I was watching, I'm like, oh, is that the message? Is there a piece in here? And I never felt it was like, oh, it's just trying to be subtle. It's there. It's just, it felt very of its time in the early 80s.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. I think I watched this and I was probably too young to have watched this at the point where I watched it. But it feels very yuppie.
Yeah.
Like mid 80s excess, capitalistic, like this arc of people coming out of college who are kind of already set for life and then not being able to even manage that.
I mean, I think
struggling
it nails the message of, and I think it does really well, of hitting you over the head of this, like St. Elmo's fire. We're chasing that which which doesn't exist. This sort of illusion, like the sailors going towards St. Elmo's fire. That they explain it at some point in the film. Rob even says it's St. Elmo's fire. But the other piece that was a little weird was just sort of the male-female dynamic of characters. It was just uncomfortable in a way.
No, I remember that. And again, very male-dominated, like it.
It's like, yeah, like Judd Nelson's like cheating on his girlfriend, and then he's like gaslighting her, like she's the crazy one. And it's just like at the end of the day, they're all like, "Oh, we'll still be friends." It was fun, but a fun '80s film, guys. But I did enjoy it, despite this piece. It was just a little head scratcher. It was a head scratcher for that.
Do you think someone who is leaving college nowadays would even enjoy watching it? You think it holds up in that context?
No, I think there's some themes in there that you could, if you want to latch onto those, the growing up piece. But if that's the case, just watch what was the Netflix series, Friends from College. Just watch that instead.
But yeah, those like love triangles and the mixed.
They at least have better characters in that treat each other better, and it's a little more realistic. But again, it kind of reinforces, like, I'm trying to find. I mean, I know more of Joel Schumacher is bad than good. Most Joel Schumacher films are. I mean, we have Lost Boys, right? We have some things that are redeemable in there, but Flawless. Yeah. I really like Flawless.
Even the stuff that I like, I recognize as not being very good generally. He's just a guy who's managed to, find his niche, and he does what he does, and he's continued to, be able to work for a very long time. But not many that I would say are like, oh, that's a really good movie. Flatliners. I love Flatliners.
Yeah, Flatliners.
I love the Lost Boys, but Schumacher just is Schumacher, and that's kind of what he does. It's middle of the road stuff.
He's somebody I try to give the benefit of the doubt because, especially once the Batman films hit, people like to, claim like ruining the Batman films. But again, even then I see what he was trying to do, like watching those movies in hindsight, seeing that he was trying to make comic book movies versus what Tim Burton was making.
Right.
So even that I find forgiving. He was bringing back to the old school Batman comic books, but so I can almost appreciate the Schumacher Batmans these days more than I can a lot of his work.
He directed A Time to Kill.
Yeah, he did. I think he did maybe more. Was it more than one Gresham or just the?
Yeah, there was more than one. There was The Client.
Yeah.
But A Time to Kill is really good.
Yes.
I mean, that's early Bullock, McConaughey, and L. Jackson.
And he also directed 8 Millimeter,
Hmm.
which was terrible.
I mean,
but again, he pushed a major Hollywood film about smut videos, smut cinema. So maybe he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that's a good Crazy Cage film.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely terrible.
But
the level of caginess of Nicolas Cage's performance is up there.
It's true. No, I think out of the Schumachers, I mean, of course, I'll see Flatliners and Lost Boys. You see those every once in a while again, in some capacity. But I think Flawless is one I want to return to at least one more time. I remember liking it, but I was young, and that has like Philip Seymour Hoffman in it.
That's one I'm pretty sure I have not seen, and I think I'd kind of just given up on.
Yeah.
Schumacher as a director at that point.
It was it seemed like at the time it's a little more smaller, earnest film by him. But
Ernest Goes to Jail?
Hey, the Ernest shows are coming.
Finally.
Until we break down the Ernest as one of the greats. But until then, I think so those are
what would the Lighthouse have been with Jim Varney in it?
I mean, I would say it'd be a totally different movie, but maybe not.
I think that's a good question to ask as we start to dissect these two performances.
Yeah, because the Lighthouse is a lot of things.
It is a lot of things,
and it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to juggle. So yeah, let's talk about the Lighthouse. Let's see how great it is.
Yeah,
that was a good segue. Good segue, everyone.
we're just following. We're just following the script.
Yeah. So the Lighthouse. This was the sophomore feature length effort from Robert Eggers, who directed another A24 film, The Witch.
The Witch.
It is a film that largely features just two performances. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as these two lighthouse keepers trying to hold themselves together while living in isolation on this New England island, tending this lighthouse in the late 19th century.
Yeah, right. And they're spending what's like a month. They're supposed to be there a month, spending their time keeping the lighthouse.
It's just about their relationship as roommates and coworkers, working and living in the same space. So I think it's apropos that we're taking a look at this film as we think about our own lives as we live and work in the same space on a daily basis around the same people.
It's true.
If only Jim Varney were here.
As we do, I was looking where it fell through the Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Achievement in Cinematography. Just we put it out there, just as something to think about, and then also a BAFTA nomination for Best Cinematography, which I think is a good place to start. It's just kind of the way this thing looks, shot on an old camera of the era. In that sort of reduced film aspect ratio, and in real stark black and white.
Yeah, that was the first thing that jumped out at me. I mean, immediately as the film started playing, within the first 30 seconds, was that 4:3 aspect ratio, like old timey television ratio.
But almost looks like the old the old photographs you would see of folks back then being. You have to stand super. So I think it's even how we first see them really like stand in front of the lighthouse, like they're getting their photo taken.
Yeah, and like even the grayscale, right, is diminished. Everything's kind of pushed to the far ends of the black or white spectrum. But yeah, that about 20 minutes in, thinking about the look and the feel, that shrunken aspect ratio, and then thinking about the claustrophobia. Right, of being contained in the same space with only one other person that you don't really know, right? And how that kind of heightened the anxiety and the tension around and between the two in their relationship.
No, I agree. I mean, I think the way it's even with the sound, the way it looks, the sound almost that like between the wind, and I don't know if it's like almost like a foghorn, so some sort of like there's always this sort of like
the
foghorns,
the repeating drone, the repeating drone of everything. You're I remember watching it. Even like second time when I watched it, within it is by like the 20-30 minutes, you almost feel like you're in this world with them. I think it does a really good job to
the constant seagulls.
Yeah,
right? Like that's I mean it all feels very, very real.
Feels real, and it's almost there's almost something hypnotizing about this film, with the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way they talk. It's just you just fall into this rhythm. Even most of the movie, right, is this cycle of work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, and you know they're kind of evenings together, but then their days doing their work, or one of them doing their work. Kind of just you can kind of get lulled into this, and that was the first thing I noticed. I found myself, even for good and bad, getting lulled into this sort of trance of this film. Bringing a little bit of the witch back in there, that idea of kind of being mesmerized and hypnotized by this film.
That feeling of the monotony of day-to-day life, right? And in a time where literally there was no entertainment, right? I mean, they didn't have anything other than either whittling wood or cooking or talking to one another to entertain themselves. It's not like they were they could go to separate rooms and play video games or watch TV. But it's that I really, because I'm sure we will talk about this at some point, but because this really is a dark comedy at its heart. That's the way I watched it.
That's why Ernest would fit in. Yeah.
But just the attention to detail with the dialogue and the dialect, the sound, the ambient sounds, and the way all of that fits together. And like you said, it really draws you in despite this initial, it's like, there's no color, right? It's not shot in widescreen. It's not like everything that we think of when we think of modern cinema. It is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But it's somehow completely engrossing.
It is. I mean, I think part of that engrossingness is you're watching it, and you're just, at least I know for me, you're just trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out what's going on here. You're listening closely, when they talk, especially with Willem Dafoe when he speaks. You're like hanging on to his words so you can decipher what he's saying. But then also you're just trying to figure out what's going on, what's their situation, what are these stories. Then even as the movie goes on, it starts to unravel, or at least reveal itself, that you don't even know as you're trying to figure out, you don't even know if you figured out the right thing, because stories start changing amongst each other, and why they're here, or why his leg is hurt. The story changes depending on the night.
So you get into this space again, like we talked about with Fight Club, of just unreliable narrators.
Yeah.
Right. You have two people living in isolation. They don't have a prior history together. They don't have this. There is no friendship. It's just it's a working relationship, and now they're forced into these tight quarters together, right? And over time, they both seem to be breaking down, like mentally and emotionally, right? These like random fits of anger and the lashing out at one another. Then clearly some things that have to be hallucinations, or at least seemingly are hallucinations. So yeah, it's just fascinating to watch, and that the way that unfolds between the two of them and the performances both of them give, just I feel are absolutely incredible considering how pared down everything else is, and it's really just left to the two of them to make this film work.
No, it really is, and it's kind of coming off of, say, like Fight Club last week, where you see two people kind of feeding off each other, this kind of battle of control of one another, and then, which, you know, was done well with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, but then just to see it in this film with these two, it becomes just like a masterpiece in a film about control and trust, and just, can you trust the person you're with? Do you understand the person with? And then who controls who, right? I mean, it gets to the part eventually where, you know, one of them has them on a dog leash, walking like a dog, as well. So that's what I started to really enjoy too. This film just about control. Like, it starts off with Willem Dafoe wanting him to drink, and he's like, I'm not going to drink on duty. It's against the rules. And this idea of you can't see the light in the lighthouse. You're not allowed. Setting these boundaries, and then, you know, as the film just these roles almost start reversing as it ends, in that piece as well, who has the ultimate control. But things like Willem Dafoe chasing him with a knife, with an axe, but then later on says, why were you chasing me with an axe?
That's
gaslighting.
Yeah, JB, go ahead with that, because I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me.
Oh, no. I was just saying gaslighting. I got my thoughts on a different topic. If you add to it, please.
Well, no, I think that's really what the last third of the movie becomes. It's this constant back and forth of perception versus reality, and you're watching things happen in front of you as the viewer, right? And then the narrative changes, and it's like, I know what I saw. Now there's this conversation. You sympathize with Pattinson in most scenarios because it seems like Dafoe's the one who, despite claiming to have had control the entire time, seems to be losing control the most.
Yeah. I think something that stood out to me, being that it's the second movie, you could tell it's an Eggers. I feel like he's definitely just found a really interesting directorial, just voice. You watch The Witch and Lighthouse, and they fit together. And I think for me, it was interesting to look at stories of old Americana told in mixing the folklore of Americana, but also the humdrum daily life of Americana, and trying to weave them together in a coherent way that humanizes that. So it's not like, I don't know, the folklore sort of seems otherworldly, but when you meet these characters and you experience what they're experiencing, the isolation, the anxiety, the loneliness, the repetitiveness of everything from foghorns to seagulls to the work, the hallucinations kind of make a little more sense. It does make you wonder, are these hallucinations? Are these real? What would I do in that situation? So for me, it was really interesting to take a historical perspective to both movies. Both movies happen at this time where, like Gabriel said, there's not much to do. And when you pair that with the folklore of all these mystical things that happened during that time, and you pair that with maybe mental health concerns of anxiety and isolation, it's a really interesting take on it.
No, it's true. It's this historical situations that are also when individuals are removed from society and placed in these pieces, and the anxiety seeps in, but then also so does the alcoholism and the extreme male sexual desires emerge as well, because it's also
they're slow dancing together.
Well, it's the two of them dancing and embracing. It's
It's
Pattinson's
the mermaid.
mermaid obsession.
Mm-hmm.
First with the little doll, with the little wooden figure he finds. I mean, I think it even comes down to like the farting and flatulence as well. It's just very. It's a piece that as part of the comedy in the film, right? That's in there, and there's obvious like erection little even visual cues in the thing. I think there's one point where like the lighthouse, it's like a sideways view of the lighthouse. The camera's sideways, and then the camera moves so the lighthouse comes straight up as well. So there's plenty of like phallic imagery, male sexual urges, just male urges in general. That's why I think it's almost beautiful in the fact like when he sees Dafoe sleeping there in the bed when he first sees him, and then he just farts, right? It's kind of setting you up like this is you're in for something, right? But at the same time, I think that serves the film just as much as it does to put the dark comedy aspects in it as well. I mean, you even have Pattinson as the peeping Tom later when he's like peeping at him through the roof when he's putting the shingles back on.
Right.
And again, is that a little bit of like, oh, who am I with? This trusting one another, the control thing, or is this also this, like we said, this kind of sexualness that's throughout this film?
Well, so there's clearly early on, right? There's something to Pattinson's reasoning, when he tells him, I don't drink, right? I don't want to drink. It seems as if there's something in his past that has put him in this place where he does not trust himself when he imbibes, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to see the unraveling of his behavior, over time, particularly with the seagull and the mermaid. But yeah, I can attest to this notion of the way isolation, in quarantining yourself, right, can contribute to just, the monotony of this. How do I break it up? Like, what do I do? There are only so many times you can watch a movie or pick up a book and read or do that. And so you like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. It's absurdist and pitch black simultaneously, like the comedy in this film. And I think it heightens the more dramatic moments. And so I hesitate to call it a horror film because I know that's kind of what people have pegged Eggers into, but I really do think that the horrific and the thriller elements are strictly part of this darker comedy.
Yeah. I don't think it gets the horror tag if he hasn't done The Witch prior. I think people put on that. I mean, you have like a tentacle show up here and there. You have the kind of the ending, but yeah, I don't think it even comes close to it. I think the horror tag is unjustly put on it. I've
never viewed the Witch as a horror movie.
No, I agree.
It is very much a psychological drama.
Yeah, but if you put a witch and stuff, that. I mean, I agree, but it's the easier piece. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's lazy. It's lazy to tag them solely tag them as horror films.
Well, the Witch is easy to sell as a horror film. It's easier to market.
Sure.
I think this is one thing for this film. How do you market it? Wasn't our job, but I agree. And so maybe that's where the horror tag comes in there a little bit as well to get some other people there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know what else we can say without wholly giving away the entirety of the film. But to me, it really comes down to those two performances, right? I think Dafoe and Pattinson both give these tour de force, like slapstick, dramatic, like darkly comedic performances that are just unhinged and wholly just fully realized characters, right? Like I can't think of another film I've seen in the last few years where you really feel like they are embodying real people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're letting themselves go emotionally, mentally, like physically, just fully embracing who these characters are. And so that is the thing that really, I think, makes the film for me and kept me engrossed in it, like from start to finish. It's just the way they meshed those two performances together. I can't remember the last time I saw something where I feel like, wow, these are two actors acting at their absolute peak levels.
Yeah, no, this movie doesn't work without the two of them just being on. And that both are definitely on, because I think they are the hand that guides you through this film, because I can see people struggling with this movie as well as they watch it, even with their performances. So it says a lot. No, I think both are top notch in that. It's definitely a film, as I finished it, and regardless, I'll say this for the ending. We tend not to kind of spoil blatantly spoil a piece. I think the ending works. It doesn't leave you like, what the hell just happened? What the hell did I watch? It's not like one of those endings where it just fades to black and you're like, what? There's a little bit of the what factor in there for sure, but I think that applies to the movie in general. And I think that's my piece with the film. Once it finished, it's definitely one of those films where I enjoyed it and I sat and I said, I got to see this again. But it's not for the same reason that a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, I got to see that movie again. That, this is something else. I can't believe that I just saw that. This is more like, I think I didn't get it all. I need to take another pass at this. Or when I see it a second time, now that I've seen this, it's not the Fight Club syndrome where I'm going to look out for all the things to see how the movie, quote, works. It's more of there's so many layers going on here. I think I need to kind of sit with it a little bit and then also watch it under that new view after I've kind of processed it and thought about it. And I don't know if some people give it that much patience at the same time, right?
I'm willing to bet there's several folks that don't.
Yeah, because I can see plenty of people walk out and say that was awful. That was terrible. Yeah.
JB, what are you thinking about?
It was an okay movie. Visually stunning. I think this. The fact that it was, in those categories with BAFTA and right up there with 1917 this year, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. It was just seeing how whoever was responsible. I know it's not just Eggers, but seeing how they manipulated light to create a scene.
Yeah. From what I've heard, they had to, because the exposure of the film, things had to be extremely bright on set, just to expose the film to the amount that we could see on screen.
Wow.
Yes,
that's really cool.
So some real technical skill and
wizardry,
technical and artisticness there, like to really do that. So,
and from a technical aspect, I want to go into the writing, like the attention to detail to this antiquated, dead English language.
Well, and I think Edgar's did a much better job, because in The Witch, it's known that he's even been very vocal, like, I lifted actual dialogue from books and manuscripts from the era when I wrote The Witch. Like, all the words aren't, quote, his in that. With this film, he's been said, hey, his brother, whoever he wrote it with, we worked tirelessly on the dialogue. We did our research. So I think he nailed the voice, no question. And nailed that much. And like I said, I think it's a much better film than The Witch. for me, when it comes to performances, dialogue, visioning, putting it all together, pacing, all of that. Not that one is required. One has to be better than the other, but that was one thing going into it. But I did kind of, JB, with you, you kind of bring a point. You're like, hey, it's an okay movie. It looks really good. This or that.
Well, it's like, so it's artistic on many layers. Like Eggers is he creates for the finer qualities of it. In both The Witch and The Lighthouse, there's just like this beauty that you don't see in all movies. Again, with dialogue, again with the scenes, the framing, the lighting, the wardrobes, the characters, the attention to detail. It's really stunning. And because it's so detailed, it's not going to be as popular because it does fit into, I don't know, there's the details there are to be appreciated on like a level that when people are just sitting down on a Wednesday night after decompressing for work or on a weekend, like that's not what they're going to be looking for in a movie.
It's funny. A theme that as we've been, we got chosen somehow to be the people who figure out what the greats are.
Blessed.
I remember when I got that letter in the mail.
We're like,
weird.
We'll do it. We'll do it, I guess, if we're the ones. But no, kind of an ongoing kind of thread throughout a lot of our discussions is either one, who is this audience for that this film is written, that this film was made for, like in general, or how is the audience going to react to this film based on the subject matter, based on things, and where does, and this is kind of a question I've grappled with kind of with some of our decisions about greats and not greats, where does the responsibility of the audience or worrying about the audience and their interpretation, where does that begin and end, right? When a film gets held up. And I know Gabriel's posed that question for some of our films. Kind of when this film is put into the audience hands, how will it be interpreted? And when I was watching this film, that question started seeping into my mind, like where, and you used the word appreciation, where does the appreciation land, right? Would 20-year-old self of me like love this film? Like this would be like the film of my life at the time, probably, right? As 40-year-old myself, do I appreciate some of those things you mentioned as much? I do, and then at the same time I don't, because also some of it I'm just kind of, I still want movies that challenge and push my limits and the audience's limit. But at the same time, I'm like, all right. You see what I'm saying? I'm like,
well,
okay. Okay.
So I think part of my point is when you're making films that are strictly about or seemingly to be at their core about making social commentary, you have a responsibility as the artist creating that art to ensure that you're not doing that in an irresponsible way, right? Like I'm not saying you have to make it blatantly obvious, but you need to at least give some nods to the things. When you're creating satire, you have to at least give a nod to what it is that you are, what point are you trying to make about how absurd this vantage point is? Yeah. Right. And that's, I watched Joker this weekend as well. That is a film that I feel is wholly irresponsible. Yeah. I think it is ham-fistedly handled by Todd Phillips, and it does not ultimately make the point it should be making. Mm-hmm. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, if that ever gets up to the docket.
I think this film isn't making some sort of grand social message.
No, it's not. It's not.
I think it's pointing out how fragile the human psyche and the male psyche is. And that this isn't something that is strictly quarantined to present day. This is a common thread through history. Right. And now we have the ability to recognize and acknowledge these things. We can seek therapy. We can take medicinal treatments. There are a lot of different things we can do. Those weren't options back then, right? And so I think there's a difference when you're talking about satire versus just
there is
a black comedy.
No, I agree, and that's kind of with this piece. When there are different animals, and my thought with the audience in general is, as I was thinking, like, regardless where the message, does this click? How well does this click in the realm of greats, right? Does this click? And again, I'm not the mainstream. I don't like to go the mainstream route or say a great has to have mainstream appeal. I don't think that at all. I don't want that confused, because I think in some ways a great maybe shouldn't have mainstream appeal as well. I think the argument could be had for both. It's just, even me personally, as I was watching it, it was weird in the fact of a movie that I thought was really good. When I finished it, I just wasn't sure how well I liked it. But I kept thinking about it, which is a good thing as well. But I ended it and I was just like, did I not? I'm pretty smart and, maybe pick up on a lot of things. But I was like, did I? I don't know. I'm even pausing. That's kind of where I was at. And I think even here in our conversation, we've talked a lot about things we really like about it. But even here, we're even kind of dancing around our thoughts and our feelings, because it seems to be a film that is kind of hard to really find your place with the film as well. It's kind of been my conclusion with it.
I'm going to hold my thought. JB, do you have anything there?
So that's my last piece.
It's the last piece. Final parting thoughts on The Lighthouse. Willem Dafoe. It made me look into Willem Dafoe's work even more after the Florida Project and watching The Lighthouse.
Oh, the guy's on fire lately. No question.
He is experiencing a renaissance. But avant-garde art is like his forte. Mm-hmm. He was doing theater in New York and stuff. So it's really cool. It got me excited to look into those actors and to look into Eggers and to explore that world. Because I think it's a movie that demands different things of the people in it, and not just the people in front of the screen, but the people behind the screen. So that's really cool to see. Again, like Jesse said, it was really enjoyable and artistic and entertaining. But I do think about, how much did I like it, or would I watch it again? Stuff like that.
I agree. The further I got away from The Lighthouse after watching it, the more I enjoyed it and liked it. The further and further I got away from it, I'm like, man, that film got better and better. Just as I dwelled on it. So I'm ready to vote. Let's see if it's in the greats.
I'm ready to vote.
I think we've danced around this a lot, as Gabriel said. JB looks like he might be ready to vote.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right.
Let's go.
All right. Ready to reveal.
Right.
Oh, look. He's
and
back on.
The Lighthouse is
I put
great.
I put not great.
Not great.
Not great. I put on my great. I put too soon. Need to let it cook. I think this might be one at another day we come back and look at again. A little more time.
I think Eggers is going to end up in one of the greats. I think over time, Eggers is going to produce multiple great films.
He's a great in training. I mean, he has another film that could always be up for discussion already.
The Vitch. Then there's The Northman coming up about Vikings.
Yeah, but as for me, I was hoping coming in I would sway to great, but couldn't quite get there.
Yeah,
no, and
does it?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. You looked a little distraught. I was just wondering how you felt.
Oh no, I'm fine. I mean, I've had this conversation with other people.
The reviews are kind of back and forth with this film as well. It does pretty well on Rotten Tomatoes for like I think 90%. But if you get into a lot of the reviews, it's either like, oh, it's really it doesn't get like trash reviews, but it either gets A+ or it gets sort of like a B-.
Yeah, no, I think it is a polarizing film. I think it's a challenging film to watch. I felt challenged in trying to get through it the first time. And then with the second watching, I still found it challenging. Yeah. But I focused more and more on the nuance and the attention to detail. And it, as difficult of a watch as it is and as challenging of a watch as it is, I appreciate the artistry put into that film. And people are like, how can you, there's so many farts, how can you call it art? It's still art.
Listen, the farts and masturbation are some of my favorite parts in it. Not for the juvenile piece, but I think it lends a piece to that film. I think those are the little things that does push it closer to great.
It lends to the reality of like how what would you do? How would you act if you were isolated for 4 to 6 weeks? You plan for 4, but now you're there even longer, right? You don't have any means of like really accurately judging time, which is what we're living right now, right? But we're doing it. We're doing it with this access to technology and vices, and it's just there's.
No, and it's funny that it didn't get a great for me as of this discussion, because one of my favorite films of all time is an Ingmar Bergman film called Persona, about 2 women in a little coastal cottage place. One is mute and one talks. It's an actress, and it's a whole movie of one person talking to the other, and it's about being confined. It's very similar films, minus some of the. Well, there's some very erotic sexual stuff in it through just conversation.
As but it even has prone to include.
Yes, he is. And it has weird film moments where like the film comes off the reel for a moment halfway through the film, and it melts the print on screen, and then the movie resumes. So there are those moments, and Lighthouse reminded me a lot of that film. And so I think maybe I need to also go back and check out Persona, because that is in my like top 5 films of all time, probably. So maybe that also, I was looking a little too much for Persona in the Lighthouse, or vice versa. But speaking of which, we still have a bet to do. I was back and forth on how to do this week's bet, but given our discussion, maybe I made the right choice. As people may know or may not know, each week we bet at the end of the show. It's a way to kind of give somebody the last word. It's a way for somebody to bring a film back for another discussion. And in this case, it could be The Lighthouse since it got a not great. And also it kind of earns people points, so eventually they can champion a film and bring it to our discussion and say this is one of the greats and has to sway at least one of us over. So today's bet, I wanted to pull back how it all started. One of our let's control F and search some reviews for a keyword. We did it with the with the Knives Out episode. We're going to do it with Lighthouse, but this one's going to be a slight twist. We're going to do fart versus flatulence, because it is a piece that at least in some of the promotion of the film I saw, like the talk shows and whatnot, the farting and the flatulence often came up as a talking point. So I was curious, not reading really any reviews of this, just kind of seeing scores. I pulled the top five top critic scores from Rotten Tomatoes. And we're just going to search. We're going to search fart and we're going to search flatulence in each of the 5 reviews. Your job as the bettor is you're going to decide, are these writers highbrow or lowbrow, right? Are they going to choose the word fart?
Oh.
Are they going to choose the word flatulence? You're going to pick the more prevalent word, between the reviews, and then you're going to give a number. So, for example, if you think flatulence will be used more than fart, you'll say flatulence will be used 2 more times than fart will, so flatulence plus 2. Or fart plus 7, meaning fart will be used 7 more times than flatulence in 5 reviews. The pulling from the top 5, I have the Sydney Morning Herald.
Is that's an Australian
the London
publication?
It must be.
Actually,
yes, they have a dot. They have a .au.
Just Sydney reviews.
We have London.
It's fantastic.
It says London Indoors. ES
It's appropriate.
seems to be our website, but it's thestandard.co.uk. We have. Looks more like a film blog called Little White Lies: Truth in Movies. And we have the Chicago Sun-Times. And the final one is the Chicago Reader.
Wow, Chicago twice.
Chicago twice. I just clicked. I just opened some tabs.
Chicago.
All I can see are the titles. So, fart versus flatulence for the bet. All you got to pick is your word that's used more and how many times more.
So
we'll just
across
run through
all 5. Okay.
All five. Yeah. Because you never know. Some writer, they're like, look, I'm not going to write about farts or flatulence.
Oh, so it's one. It's one.
It's all 5.
So we have to come up with 5 different guesses.
No, just single guess.
No, just one guess.
Across.
Combined, like we did with Knives Out.
Okay.
Yeah. There could be 20 farts mentioned and 67 flatulence.
God, this is so high stakes.
It's always high stakes. All right, so I have mine. So you're just looking for fart or flatulence and then plus however many extra times you think that word will be used. I have my vote ready. We can kind of share our votes, and then I'll just pull the websites.
Let's start.
Are we,
JB, you want to go first?
Are we writing these down?
What?
Are we writing these down?
We always write it down for honesty, so we can kind of.
All right.
If anything, we're about
it's in
integrity.
my noggin for sure.
But if you just want to tell us,
we'll trust you.
Scout's honor.
Live long and prosper.
If you're going first, we can trust you.
Right.
Because look, I have no pencil. My pencil's down. My hands
are
up.
Okay. This
looks like you're making it up on the spot.
Flatulence plus 5.
Ooh, flatulence. I'm gonna write that down for you. Flatulence plus 5.
Perfect.
All right. I just wrote down. I already have my thing, but I just wrote down flatulence 5. My guess. I'll say mine. Mine was fart plus 3.
I got flatulence plus 6.
I'm gonna see it.
Oh.
Ooh. All right. So all I need is a fart. And we always say who's ever closer. So Gabriel gets.
It's an over/under at that point.
All I need.
All you need is a fart.
All
victory.
I need to win is fart. All right.
I
want to say
you just need a fart victory, but I'm thinking of these international press releases. I feel like.
Okay, if you guys want to keep, I'm going to keep little tallies. I'll just do this quick for this. The Sydney Morning Herald. I just searched fart, and we have 2 on 2 for fart in that one. I'm now going to do a Control F for flatulence. Guys, no flatulence.
Damn it, Sydney.
In the Sydney Morning Herald. All right. Moving on to the London Indoors. We'll do flatulence first.
Blown away
this time.
Literally.
Guys, it's looking bad. Literally. No, they didn't like to use the word flatulence in that one. But no farts either.
Oh.
No farts or flatulence in our second review.
What word they used?
They just didn't talk about it. They
secretions.
didn't talk about it. Yeah.
Did we search
right,
for flatulence as well?
Ooh, I could say flat. How about I do this? How about I do?
Because that's
a good thing. How about here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do the word flat. So all variations of the word.
Flatul.
Correct. We agree on that?
Right. I think because they could say that the performances were flat, but if.
Okay. Good call. Because I just went to London Indoors. I went back. I'm searching just the word flat. We have the word They're quoting. Oh, this flatulent drunkard says, in quoting a line. So flatulence has one there for the.
Gabriel, well done.
I'm going to go back.
We're back in the game.
Good catch. I'm going to go back to the Sydney Morning.
Come on,
Herald.
Sid.
No flat mentioned at all. But after three publications, we're at fart with 2, some variation of the word flatulence at 1. It's all in Chicago.
Chicago loves farts.
Reviews.
The beans.
The Windy City.
You're spilling your beans, boy. Quit spilling your beans.
We didn't even talk about the me lobster line, right? Tell me. Which again, another point of that film, which I really like, this sort of man, wife, mom, daughter, mom, son, right? Because Dafoe is like knitting at some point, just sitting there knitting at night. He gets so irate that he doesn't like his cooking.
He taught himself to knit for this role.
Wow. Okay. Listen, guys, this is a nail biter. There is no farting in the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yikes.
But the line and filling the air with flatulence. So we are tied 2-2.
Got 2 more publications.
No, this is the last one. We're at the end.
I thought we were doing 5.
Sydney and London.
So I got Sydney,
London
indoors.
Chicago's.
Oh, I'm sorry. White Little Lies still had none for either. No farts, no flatulence. White Little Lies.
Why are we searching for blog?
It's the top 5 top critics, guys. You know what? From what I can tell, maybe they get a lot of readers. Who knows? So now it comes down to the Chicago reader.
Speaking of readers.
Fart or flatulence. No witty headline, just the Lighthouse. I'm going to type in fart.
Mud.
Oh, wow.
No farts. No flatulence. We're tied at 2. So what we're going to do, I assume, we'll just go to the next one on the list. I'm okay with that. It will be Real Views. That's REL. Real Views.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep. They gave the film a 3.5 out of 4.
Out of 4.
And let's see if Real Views, we got to go to the tiebreaker film. Real Views has 1 fart.
It's all over.
No flatulence, guys.
Oh.
All right.
I'll take the win. I squeezed by a fart.
Oh.
I won by a fart.
I'll squeeze one out.
Guys, I squeezed that one out. Yeah, that's what I was going for.
That was, you.
Oh. Wow. That was fun. I was going to say, I am tickled when these bets work out like they do. I think most of them have come out closer and better than I think about it. I always doubt myself. I was happy. I wasn't going to bring us too far into the fart and flatulence part of this conversation, hoping that it would just come out naturally. We've turned into a terrible podcast. Not that we were great before, but... But we've come out even worse.
Gas puns are.
I knew it was to use JB's turn of phrase, some low hanging fruit for that bet. But I figured our 13-year-old
pick them off the tree. They're hanging there.
You know what? I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
Yeah. All right, so that kind of concludes our discussion on The Lighthouse this week. As we end our bets, I guess I get the last word.
Before you say anything, I just want to also shout out to our middle schoolers who are listening.
Oh, they're loving it. They're going to talk about this all in the virtual chat rooms.
We forgot to talk about our sponsor, What the Golf.
What the Golf by Nintendo.
What the Golf, Nintendo Switch. What the Golf.
To my understanding, according to my Facebook ads, it's number 10 on the eShop store. So keep downloading it.
Well, I did get my promo download that I got a 25% discount on.
Yeah, but
because they sponsor the show.
I know. If you use our coupon code, you'll get the discount too. Just put that in the promo code part.
And I will say, it may be the most fun I've had playing golf.
Hey there, greatest movies of all time podcast listeners. I need to interject here real quickly. This is Jesse, and what you're about to hear is the audio at the very tail end of this episode. Sped up, started getting garbled, and you can't understand a word we say. So for those of you playing along at home with the Greatest Movies podcast home game, I wanted to make sure I updated with some of the important information that ended in this episode, so you'll be able to update your scorecards at home. I did win the bet. That would be my second win of the show so far. I'm 2 away from championing a film. So part of that win gave me the responsibility of having the last word within the episode. And unfortunately, I'm not going to retrace those steps and retread that ground. What was said was said. The last word is saved for in the moment. So unfortunately for listeners, the things I said and shared will have to remain between myself and the rest of the council for that particular episode. The other responsibility I was given because I won the bet was the ability to save a film we discussed within that episode if it did not get voted as one of the greats. And in this case, The Lighthouse did not get voted as one of the greats. Even though I was one of the individuals who voted against The Lighthouse, I did feel, as part of my discussion within the episode, that it needed a little more time. I needed a little more time with this film to sit with it, to potentially watch it again, and to give myself a little more time of reflection. And maybe then I could see it as a great. So I am going to save it for a future discussion. That means The Lighthouse is being placed in that special realm of movies that will get a second chance, a second day in court, where we will decide its fate again, have a revote, amongst other films that get placed in that category as well as the show goes on. But in the meantime, we thank you for listening. Thanks for sticking with us. We're finding our feet with this podcast. We're having a lot of fun. We're going to keep it going. We have a lot of movies to evaluate to find the greatest movies of all time, and we will stick with it as long as you stick with us. You can always email us at greatestmoviespodcast@gmail.com. We are also on letterboxd.com/greatestmovies, and we can be found on social media such as Twitter and Instagram. Please hit us up, give us your thoughts, give us your suggestions, and in the meantime, keep watching movies, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.